It's one thing to listen to doom and gloom about food and fertilizer shortages, skyrocketing prices, the cost of living, or your job being outsourced overseas or eliminated due to automation. It's quite another thing to hear practical, immediately actionable advice from experts who can help you reduce the fear, anxiety, and burden of these problems. Tune in now to the Surviving Hard Times podcast from the Finding Genius Foundation with Richard Jacobs. Before we begin, a note from our sponsor. I'm Richard Jacobs, Executive Director of the nonprofit Finding Genius Foundation and host of the Finding Genius podcast. In late 2016, I was rear-ended at 65 miles an hour by a truck on the highway, which sent me off-road into a ditch. The impact of the collision gave me a concussion and other injuries. At the hospital, a CT scan showed that I had thyroid nodules, which turned out to be cancer. It was then, when I had a biopsy of my neck, that I realized even if I was a millionaire, I wouldn't want a second or a third biopsy due to the pain and the invasiveness of it. And appointments at that time for thyroid experts were 3 to 6 months out, and I was worried about dying now, even if that was irrational. So because of this, I've decided to raise money to conduct a literature review on steroids, on the causes of anxiety and depression, a condition that affects well over 50 million people in the United States and hundreds of millions worldwide. Our goal is to create a codex, a guide that reveals all possible treatments for anxiety and depression for people that live with the condition or for loved ones that have it, as my wife and my son do. To find out more about our fundraiser, visit findinggeniusfoundation.org and click on current initiatives. And now to our guest. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Surviving Hard Times podcast, sponsored by the Finding Genius Foundation.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Surviving Hard Times podcast. I have David Selman. He's part of Savvy Organics Farm. We're going to talk about his farm, his YouTube channel, homesteading, the produce they make, etc. So welcome and thanks for coming, David.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
If you would, tell me a bit about your background and how you got into homesteading in the first place.
How we got into homesteading? Well, keeping a long story short, I guess my wife and I both have experienced over the years some health issues from time to time, and have gained a fairly large distrust of modern medicine and the commercial medical systems that are out there, realizing that most of our medical professionals are not trained in diet and the use of herbs as medicine and food as medicine and those kind of things. So we began trying to learn more and more about how to heal ourselves, how to stay nice and healthy without breaking the bank using modern medicine.
And when did homesteading enter the picture? Like, what was the evolution of this? The health issues, did you try to modify diet first? Or like, how did you come to the homesteading answer?
Well, the homesteading and lifestyle that we've chosen has developed over time. We started probably around 2015, getting just involved in looking at and watching some different YouTube channels that really hit home with us. There were a lot of documentaries out there on Netflix about health and nutrition and some of those things that we watched a lot. And then we've gone to Homesteaders of America conference several times and the Homesteading Lifestyle or Homesteading Life conference, I think 7 times now. And every time we go to one of these, it's just more and more information and just how to live a better lifestyle, a regenerative lifestyle, a lifestyle that's healthy and not dependent on the global food system, the global medical systems, and really has encouraged us greatly to move away from those as far as possible.
Well, how did you start out? What was like some of the first things that you decided to grow?
We've been gardeners, avid gardeners, pretty much since we've been married, and they've grown over the years. So, in the little houses that we've had in the past, we always had a little backyard garden that was mostly for fun and relaxation and to grow a few vegetables and things on our own. But over time, both through research and the conferences we go to and some of the other YouTube channels we watch, we've really gained a lot of insight into how depleted the commercial food system soils are. And so a lot of those foods have lost a lot of nutrient value. And then when you do go to a grocery store, you have to be super careful about the things you buy because they're often, contain a lot of ingredients that humans really shouldn't be having. So yeah, we just continue to grow and develop our gardens and our permaculture systems. Today we have our kitchen garden, which is 20 feet by about 60 feet. It grows primarily a lot of the food and medicinal herbs that my wife and I use. And then we live on 5 acres, and then the acre next to our home is largely used for production of vegetables pretty much all year round. We have a greenhouse that has extended our season to grow a lot of things even through the winter. We have a high tunnel that extends our season as well into the fall, and then helps us start earlier in the spring. So at this point, we probably grow somewhere around 70% of our own food, including meat. Most of our meat is chicken. So we raise chickens on our homestead as our primary meat source. We raise chickens. Right now we have around 80 laying hens that we use for the eggs. And then we typically raise either Cornish cross, and we have American breast chickens, and we'll raise those typically in batches of about 30. So yeah, just raising everything on organic, non-soy, non-GMO feeds. Raising the animals that way, and all of our.
Have you thought about having ducks, to make foie gras or duck or stuff?
Yeah, we've had a couple of ducks just for fun in the past. Ducks are a lot of work for us. They're messy. They're difficult to process. I do enjoy their eggs. Their eggs were good, but the ducks were really just. They were more like farm comedians. They were fun to watch. They're hilarious little animals, but they're a lot of work to take care of. We've also had cattle. We've raised cattle in the past. We've raised pigs, sheep, and goats currently, but primarily our meat right now that we raise is the chickens. But we do order grass-fed beef from a couple of companies that supply it to us, but we just choose not to buy anything really from markets and grocery store that are commercially grown.
Oh, that's good. What have you noticed in regards to your health as you've gotten more and more away from, traditional food sources? Or not traditional, but just mass market food sources?
Sure. Well, the biggest thing for me, because I'll be 60 in December, is that for the most part, people that come here and volunteer to do different things or to learn from us on the farm and learn how we do what we do, even some of the younger people in their 20s have a really hard time keeping up. Physically, it's, sometimes we really have to slow down and they're just not able to keep the physical pace that we're accustomed to, even at our age, at nearly 60. That's one thing. We're really, the farm life, we call it Earth's Gym. It keeps us physically fit, active. There's just a lot of physical work that goes into it. That's just really rewarding. And a lot of nights wife will ask, well, what's for dinner? I say, well, let's go walk around and see what we want to pick and bring in and cook. So yeah, it's pretty neat. But yeah, getting away from the commercial food systems and things where there's so many ingredients in commercial foods that are just not good for people. All of the processed type things, we really do try to avoid that as much as possible. And I think that's contributed a lot to clarity of thought, our ability to continue to work physically. And we are very rarely actually sick.
That's great. So in terms of meat, are chickens the easiest to raise out of all the fowl and the creatures, you think, or what?
Chickens are very forgiving. They're easy to work with. We have just many different kinds of breeds. We have all different kinds of chickens, and their eggs are all different colors. They're different colors, but the content of the egg is basically the same on all of them. Probably the other easy one that we've had a little bit of experience with are rabbits. My wife's not a great fan, but both rabbits are also an excellent meat source for a homestead.
Oh, what about in terms of fruits and vegetables? What have you tried, and what's easier for beginning homesteaders versus more advanced people?
Well, the first thing some people try to do is grow too many things or grow things that they don't actually like to eat. So trying to stick with things that your family really enjoys, things that you like to eat, the staples of potatoes and carrots and onions and some of the fruits that we have here. We actually grow apples here in Texas. We have a few apple trees. We have peaches. We have grapevines. Actually, tomorrow we're planting 2 loquat trees, which will be an interesting new addition for us. Yeah, we have a pretty good variety of fruits and vegetables here. We have lots and lots of greens, lots of lettuce, lots of collard greens. We have spinach and arugula. Yes. So we grow a wide variety. Most of them, you just have to pay attention to the season that they should grow in. And some varieties are easier to grow in different climates, so we're way down south here in North Texas. So some of the things we may grow here at different times would have a different time period that they would grow further north, for example.
Yeah, my daughter grew pumpkins this past year and made a pumpkin cheesecake, which was, now maybe y'all can grow some pumpkins.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've grown pumpkins quite a bit in the past. The timing of those is interesting sometimes. Sometimes they're ready too soon, before Halloween, let's say, before the fall, they're actually finished.
Yeah, ours were in, I think the very beginning of August. They were ready, and it was so hot. We had they were fine, delicious, but we had to pick them way early. Otherwise they would have burned up.
Sure. And then, always, you mentioned being hot, or this year we've had some extreme droughts, being able to keep things that are drought tolerant and grow well in the heat even some lettuces. I did a class a year or so ago from Ray Tyler in Tennessee and learned from him how to grow lettuce in all seasons, and we accomplished it. So even on our Texas heat, we've been able to keep lettuce pretty much year round.
Well, it's cool. So what percentage of the stuff you grow, you keep for yourself versus sell, and who do you sell to, if anyone?
In the past, so we started our business farm in 2017 with the idea that we were going to be a market farm and grow and produce food for our community. And we had some success doing that. Some of the issues there, the farmers markets were a ton of work, and most of the people that grew it or that actually showed up at farmers markets weren't actually producing the food. They were the same groceries you'd get at a grocery store. So what we have set up on our barn to door store was where people could order online and they come and pick up directly here on the farm. They would pick things up from us. We had a lot of success with that, but at the same time, not enough, because we are, 4 miles from one little town and 5 from another. And people just didn't want to, it was inconvenient for them to drive out at certain times. What we've done instead, we started this year actually in 2023, is we've changed our direction more of teaching. So we're setting up classes and things where people will, come out for seminars or classes where they learn how to actually produce their own food, no matter what the scale, if they're doing it in a backyard or a balcony or even on some acreage. I have my certification in permaculture and soil science, and I'm working almost finished now with my soil microscopy class. So yeah, we're more beginning this year, we've geared more towards actually teaching people how to do it themselves, which has worked out really well. Like, for example, last weekend, we had a class on growing microgreens. We had a good turnout. Actually, some of the students have been sending me their photos of the things from the class that germinated, they've grown, and they're super excited to be able to produce some greens for themselves and, for winter months when things are not growing well. And, most of our clients and things, they tend to be a lot like us. They are beginning to shy away from the commercial systems. We've seen not just in our area, but across the country. As Joel Salatin puts it, we're seeing a tsunami of people moving towards modern homesteading, self-sufficiency, living off grid, and those kind of things.
Great.
Being less and less dependent on systems that are out there. Almost 2 years ago now, we even took our farm to be solar powered. So we really aren't even dependent on the utilities. We have rain catchments, so we capture our own rain, both for ourselves and irrigation. So yeah, trying to be as independent as possible.
You do rain? Okay, let's talk about some of that. So the major inputs, I guess, normally would be fertilizer, electricity, maybe diesel, what else? Water. So which ones have you offset how? Like, tell me a little bit about the rain catchment, for an example. What do you capture and how's it impacting you?
Well, electricity is the easiest one. We have a solar array in our field in the back, and it supplies probably 95% of our electrical power needs. And we have 2 Tesla battery backups or batteries in the garage that they're usually fully charged by noon. And so if there's any power outage or grid outage or anything, our lights are always on, and even when our neighbors are in the dark. So that's been really good. It was very expensive, I'll admit. So sometimes you have to offset why you want to do something, and as opposed to the economic value of it. So there's definitely trade-offs there. The solar energy is very expensive, but to be independent, it's well worth it to us. Rain catchment, we have 6 rain barrels on our house. They go into 55-gallon barrels, and then we have a pump that we can pump all those barrels out into a holding tank out near one of the corners of our field away from the house. That's connected to our irrigation. We're still connected to city water for showers and that kind of stuff, but the dependence is we're not really dependent, because if there's something wrong with the water supply or a problem with it, we have our own filter set up where we can easily use the rainwater in any of our systems to both for drinking and everything else. So
the rainwater catching and the solar save you money, or is it even in terms of the effort?
The return on investment on the solar is going to take a few more years, probably about 10 or 12 more years for us to recoup what the cost was there. But the cost really wasn't important. It was more important for our lights to be on and for our freezers to be operational and that sort of thing. That's more important to us as modern homesteaders. The rainwater is awesome. It takes a quarter of an inch of rain to completely fill our system. So it doesn't take a whole lot of rain at all. And, most of the year we're generating enough electricity, for example, most of our power gets sent back to the grid. So that offsets, the cost when there may be a few days or something where our connection to the grid is actually supplying us a little power, for a few really stormy or cloudy days. But the sunny days that it's generating more than offset that. Most of the time we end up with an electric bill that's negative, or the few times we get an electric bill, it may be like $20 or something silly.
Okay. What about fertilizer, the other inputs that are needed?
Sure. The only thing we have that's diesel that requires fuel is our tractor, and it's 5 gallons fills our little Yanmar Yanmar T235 tractor. It's perfect for our 5-acre farm, and the 5 gallons of diesel in that usually last us about 2 months. So that's pretty good. It's very fuel efficient, and we use the thing every day. When we haul feed and water and things out to our mobile pastured chickens, we haul water out to them and their feed and grain and stuff daily. So the tractor comes in very handy. Yeah. So as far as fertilizers and inputs like that, we really don't use much of anything as far as fertilizer goes. As permaculture specialists, what we try to do is mimic nature, like it would in a forest floor, for example. So we compost everything that can be composted. Through that, we regenerate soil and add those things back into the soil, and those are our fertilizers. Occasionally, we might buy something like a fish emulsion or something like that for a boost, but most of the time, we're using regenerative soil practices that keep our soils healthy and alive. We even do soil testing for other people and their gardens. I have a little lab set up here in my office with a microscope, so I can identify and tell them about the soil life and the activity in their soil, and then we'll do the NPK and pH analysis for them as well about what's actually available to their plants and make recommendations to them. So we use those same practices for ourselves. As I mentioned, the commercial food systems and most of the foods that people buy in grocery stores, those soils are so depleted of nutrients that they're not what they were 40 or 50 years ago. So the nutrition of the plants that we grow for ourselves here are superior in nutrition, just based on the natural use of regenerative soil and permaculture principles.
Well, again, you mentioned earlier on that you're able to, more stamina, you and your wife than, let's say, 20-year-olds, which is great. Amazing. What else have you noticed, now that you've converted most of your diet to eating your own fresh food?
I don't crave the junk food. I don't crave hamburgers from Whataburger. I don't, it probably took a year or two before that was the case, but I really avoid eating out. I avoid eating at fast food places. They don't have anything to offer anymore. So that's one thing. I think a lot of those type things, where people are so really addicted to eating out and not cooking at home and preserving their own food. A lot of the things we grow, we can preserve or freeze dry. We have a freeze dryer, so we freeze dry a lot of things for use over the winter months and emergency use. But yeah, so that's probably one of the biggest things is, people are sick so often, and a lot of that is really and truly based on their diet from eating out and fast food and commercial foods. So my wife and I rarely are ill, and I think that's largely because of, the nutritious food that we eat directly from the farm. We need milk or something like that. We have a farm that we'll go and visit that has raw milk in East Texas. We'll make our own yogurt from that, occasionally cheese and stuff like that. But, if we don't make it or grow it here, we try to find somebody that has a product that meets our needs that's growing on their own place. And I think those are huge contributors to our longevity and health.
How much time does all this take, to do all the growing, the cooking, prep, and all the other stuff versus, again, going to Whataburger or just eating whatever?
Well, it does take more time. It is all on its own. It's a full-time job by itself. It is a lifestyle change that people have, if they want to live this, they just have to embrace that. There are a lot of people that live this modern homesteading life that still have full-time jobs, and they go to work and they do this to the degree that they can, working evenings, weekends on that kind of thing. In fact, I still work. I have a home inspection business where I do home inspections for real estate. I also teach other people how to become home inspectors. So I'm usually gone 4 days at a time. And while I'm gone, the wife is taking care of everything that she can do here. But every other minute is spent, in the pursuit of the modern homesteading lifestyle, growing our own food and creating our own medicines and storing food for difficult times or for the winter. So it's pretty full time. Some of the benefits, though, it is a lot of work, but at the same time, my wife and I often cook together. So we spend time doing that. really don't watch any television. We when we want entertainment or we want to do something like that, we'll watch something that's educational, maybe a documentary or something like that. Or we have a whole host of YouTube channels that we'll watch. So just getting away from what might be considered norm for society. You're 9 to 5, come home, pick something up to eat for dinner on the way home, and eat when you get there, and then sit around and watch TV. Well, that's a pretty unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Overall. So those are the kind of things that we've learned to move away from. Even when we are ill, we've also learned quite a bit about making our own medicines. So if we have some kind of an infection or some kind of illness going on, we have a lot of herbal remedies and things that we can use here for treating ourselves before having to go to a doctor.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. What's your future plans? That over the next couple of years, how are you going to expand, chop, change? What do you want to do?
Some of the things that we're doing in the future, I have a little whiteboard here in my office on my desk, and I'm always writing stuff on it, but different ideas about some of the homesteading skills that we've learned and feel like we know pretty well. We are developing classes to teach people how to do some of those things. Anything from backyard chickens to, like I said, we did a microgreens class last weekend, being able to do composting, cooking with sun ovens, seed starting, doing vermicompost, creating all kinds of soil, your regenerative soil type stuff, dried herbs, soil testing, plant starts for people. We do some plant starts for people that don't have the time to start with seed. We'll do that for them to give them a good start. We raise chickens for sale to people that need or want them. They don't have time to raise them as chicks. By the time they get them, they're out of that chick stage, which is where most of the work is. Typically sell them as pullets, which are hens that are they're no longer chicks. They may be a few weeks from beginning to actually lay eggs.
Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of different directions you're going. Yeah.
Just all of these general homesteading skills or regenerative life skills that we're developing classes around.
What do you recommend for people just starting out that have never?
Just starting out, keep it simple. Just keep things simple. Maybe if you haven't done any of this before, maybe grow a little bit of lettuce or something in a container. Keep it super simple so that you don't burn yourself out. Keep things keep them easy and easy to maintain with whatever's going on in your lifetime, and expand. Keep all these things in mind. If that's the direction you want to go and you're enjoying it and you're seeing the benefit to your lifestyle from it, then, you can increase those things a little bit over time. Just baby steps. Just take those baby steps, start small.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Well, very good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Where can people find out more about Savvy Organic? What's the YouTube channel? Where else can they go?
You can search on YouTube for Savvy, Savvy, Organics Farm. Find our YouTube channel there. You can find us on our website, savvyorganicsfarm.com. There's links to our stores from both of those and some of our episode show notes. So we're pretty easy to find online.
All right, excellent. It's been a good call, and thank you so much for coming on board. I appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Before you stop listening, ask yourself, what are 1 or 2 useful things you heard on this podcast that can help you overcome food and fertilizer shortages, skyrocketing prices, the cost of living, or your job being outsourced overseas or eliminated due to automation? Please like and subscribe and tell your friends and family about their Surviving Hard Times podcast. We're all going to need help now and in the near future.